So let us start the satsang with prarthana. By the Guru's grace and the will of Sri Krishna, we have all assembled for this Gita satsang. May we have their guidance to be able to learn and adopt the things which will help us to grow spiritually. Let us chant the shlokas. Vasudeva sutam devam kamsachanuramardanam devaki paramanandam krishnam vande jagadgurum. कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय हरये परमात्मने प्रणतः क्लेशनाशाय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयप्रदीपः। रामानुजदया पात्रं ज्ञानवैराग्यभूषणं श्रीमद्वेङ्कटनाथार्यं वन्दे वेदान्तदेशिकम्। यो नित्यमच्युतपदाम्बुजयुग्मरुग्म व्यामोहतस्तदितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर्भगवतोऽस्य दयैकसिन्धोः रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणं प्रपद्ये। So offering prayers at the lotus feet of the Acharyas, let us start with our shloka for today. So we have been discussing the second chapter, and in the previous satsang we had covered up to the 10th shloka, where Arjuna finishes expressing whatever he has in his mind, and he agrees, he kind of offers himself to be the disciple of Krishna, and he says that you should tell me now what is right for me. Consider me as your disciple, he has said. And he has now spoken whatever he wanted to speak and becomes silent. So once Arjuna falls silent, then that is the signal for Krishna to start speaking. So in the 11th shloka, again, Krishna now starts to speak. The 11th shloka says, Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Ashocyan Anvashocastvam Prajnavadamscha Bhashase Gatasu na gatasuncha nanushocanti panditaha. So here the meaning of the shloka, the Supreme Lord said, Sri Bhagavanu Vacha. So the Supreme Lord said to Arjuna, while you speak words of wisdom, you are mourning for that which is not worthy of grief. The wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead. So what is Krishna trying to convey to Arjuna? He is telling Arjuna that in some point of time when you expressed all your feelings and all that, you appear to be very wise, and it sounds like whatever you are speaking is born out of great knowledge and wisdom. But then when you say some other things, it shows that you are feeling bad about something which you should not actually be feeling bad. So in other words, Krishna is questioning Arjuna that are you a Pandit or you are not a Pandit? And why he is saying this? Because if you were truly wise, Krishna is telling Arjuna, if you were really wise, then you would realize that whether a person is living or that person is dead, then you should not feel bad about their state. But you are saying at sometimes as if you know a lot, you have a lot of knowledge, but then other times as if you have no knowledge at all. Now, why is Krishna telling this? And what does he mean by Pandit? So, who is a learned person? Who is truly a Pandit? Somebody who has knowledge. Now, what kind of knowledge are we talking about here? Is it knowledge in worldly terms? Is it that somebody who has studied a lot, got a lot of degrees, maybe done their PhD? Is that the kind of knowledge that Krishna is talking to? Somebody who is having a lot of information, somebody who knows about all the worldly things that are there? No. Here, when Krishna is talking about Pandit, now what he means is somebody who has knowledge. But what knowledge? someone who has true jnana. And what is a true jnana? It is viveka, the power of discrimination between the body and the atma. So someone who has this power of discrimination, somebody who has understood the difference between the body and the atma, that kind of a person is actually a pandit. Now, here in the shloka, Krishna uses these words. He says Gatasun and Agatasun. So, Gatasu is referring to this mortal body, to the physical body, which is actually destructible. That means until one particular point of time, the body is breathing and everything is going on, all the activities are going on. So, the body is having life. But we know that at some point of time, this body is going to end. And what is agatasu? It refers to the Atma, which is immortal, which is eternal. It does not have death. It cannot be destroyed at any point of time. So here Krishna is trying to tell Arjuna that you talk as if you are having jnana, but actually you are not having jnana. Why? Because you are not understanding the difference between what is gatasu and what is agatasu. You are not understanding what is the difference between the body and the atma, and you're equating the two of them together. Now why Krishna is saying this? Now if we recollect the previous shlokas where Arjuna said certain things, you remember he told how after death the atma goes to other lokas, and then we have to do all the kriya karmas, all the rituals and rites which are supposed to be performed for the departed souls, so that those souls will attain the further lokas. Or he talked about how not performing those rituals will lead to downfall of the person and their entire kula. So at that time when Arjuna spoke about all this, he seems to have understood that okay, this body is something which is going to die, and after the body dies, the Atma will move out of the body and go and travel further. So at that time, it sounds as if Arjuna is having jnana, that he knows that the Atma and body are different. So that is one thing that we can assume. And yet, Arjuna is saying, I don't want to kill Bhishma. I don't want to kill Drona. I don't want to fight with them in the war and kill them because they are going to die. So when he says they are going to die by my arrows, then he is saying that whoever he is identifying as Bhishma, Drona, or whoever it may be, that person is going to die. So now when he says they are going to die and that is going to cause grief to me, now here he is not separating out the body and the Atma. So he is talking in such a way as if the Atma and the body are one only. So in these places, when Arjuna says, how can I kill them? They are my own people. If I kill them, I will get papa. Now at all these times, it appears as if Arjuna is not a Pandita. He doesn't have Viveka. He is not able to distinguish between the Atma and the body. He is not realizing that even if he kills the body of that person, that Atma is eternal and it cannot be killed by Arjuna or by anybody else. So that is why Krishna is trying to indicate to Arjuna that you speak as if you are Pandit, but actually you are not. And by saying a statement like this, Krishna is actually trying to shake up Arjuna and shock him and say that you stop talking nonsense. You think about what you are talking and you talk accordingly. Right. So, what is it that we can understand from these parts? What are the points that we must focus on? So, what do we mean by Atma? Now, we know that the Atma is there, what we call in English as the soul, and it is there in every entity that is there in this world. And this Atma has certain qualities, it has certain features which are totally different from the body. And the most important out of those is the fact that the Atma cannot be killed. Now, if we want to actually understand how subtle the Atma is, the Acharyas say that if you take a grain of rice and you take the apex, the top part of that grain of rice, that tiny bit which is at the head of the grain, and you divide that tiny part of the top of the grain into 100 parts, and then you take one part out of that and you make further 100 parts out of that. Can we imagine how minuscule that will be? How tiny that will be? Nobody is going to be able to see that even with the most advanced of microscopes that we have. Now that is the dimension of the Atma. So Sukshma the Atma is. It is subatomic, we can say, in size, right? And it is told that in every individual, this Atma is present. Now, whenever we talk about things, right? We say my house, my body. Hmm? I don't say I house, I body. So that means I and the body are different. Just like I and house are different, I and body are also different. So why I am saying my house, when I say my house, I am saying that the house belongs to me. So there is something, some entity called I, and it has a belonging called the house. Similarly, when I say my Atma, what I'm trying to say actually is that there is some entity, my body. When I say my body, what I'm trying to say is there is some entity which is there, and the body is a belonging of that entity, and that entity is the Atma. Now, what is this body that we are talking about? Why do we say that the body is destructible? Because the body is composed of the Pancha Mahabhutas. It is made up of Prithvi, Ap, Tej, Vayu, and Akasha, the five elements. So, because it is made up of the five elements, it is going to dissolve at the time of death. So, it is mortal. It does not have eternal existence. But the Atma is not made up of that. So, the Atma is eternal. So, can I say my Atma? It's not actually correct to say my Atma. I should be saying I am the Atma. So, what I mean by I is actually the Atma. Now, here the example is given of how there was a boy and he wanted to take a break from school. And so he went to the teacher and he wanted to say that, I have a headache and because of that, I want to go home. Now, instead of saying, I have headache, imagine if he says, I am headache. Hmm? Like if we say in Kannada, Nanige tale novu, I am having a headache. That is what he should have said. But instead of that, suppose he says, Nan tale novu. Of course, the Acharya says we can always laugh because maybe really that boy is such a bad, difficult fellow to handle. So he may be talenau for the teacher. But will he say nan talenau? And if he says like that, it is wrong because that talenau and he, the headache and that entity are different. So similarly, we say, I have a body. I am the body, which is true. I have a body is true. But when it comes to identifying with the Atma, should I say I have an Atma or I should say I am the Atma? Very obviously, that I, what I'm talking about, is actually the Atma. And that is one of the features of the Atma that it is able to identify as I. So when we are caught up in confusion about what is the status of this body and this Atma, then we identify both as one. What has happened is that right from the time we are born, this Atma is inside the body and it has all along been coming along with us. So, what happens is the identification with the body is so strong that we are not able to distinguish and look at the two as separate entities. Whatever happens to the body, the experiences that I have, whatever I get through my pancha jnanendriyas, whatever my sense organs, experience is actually for the body. But because I have identified the Atma with the body, I say that I have this, I have got this, I am experiencing pain, I am in trouble, I have got disease, like that. So, how we can use this knowledge? When we try to consciously understand that the body is different, the Atma is different. Whatever experiences are happening are for the body. They are not for the Atma. Whether it is the physical experience or an emotional experience, right? Those experiences are for the body only. Whatever I feel mentally, whatever emotions I feel, all those are only for the physical body. Even though I say mind, the mind is still not the Atma. I may say buddhi, but the buddhi is still not the Atma. All those are at a physical level. But the Atma is something which is beyond all this. The Atma cannot feel any of these things. So, how understanding this is crucial for us to develop Viveka, because we said already, who is the Pandita, who is the knowledgeable person? The person who learns to recognize that the body is different from the Atma. The person who, in any situation, can see that whatever is happening for my body. It is not able to touch my Atma. Now, of course, this is very easy for us to say, and I may be saying it very, easily at the intellectual level. Maybe you will understand also at the intellectual level. But let us say that as soon as this satsang is over and somebody says something good to me, that, oh, the satsang was very nice. What happens? I feel happy. Oh, they said my satsang was nice. I am, making them understand. If I start feeling that, then it shows that I have not understood. I am feeling happy by something that somebody said, or somebody, let us say, I'm going out and then I hit myself somewhere and I get hurt by that. Now, what I will say at that point of time, I will feel bad and I will think, oh, I've got myself hurt. I hit my hand, right? So at that point, what I'm doing, I'm identify myself with the body. So, what is the purpose of trying to understand this difference between body and Atma? It is so that when we have happy experience, we are not really bothered, no, we don't realize it. But especially when we have bad experiences, or when we go into some kind of a sad situation, when we are in sorrow, when we are in grief, then at that time, if we try to hang on to this information, this knowledge that I means Atma and not the body, then this Viveka we can use to overcome whatever sadness we feel. And that can be a way of dealing with situations which are not so good for us. So that is how we must utilize this knowledge. Now, why Krishna is trying to tell this to Arjuna? Arjuna is in sorrow. Why Arjuna is in sorrow? Because he thinks that he is going to fight in the war and he is going to kill his own people. They are my own guru, they are my own relative, and I'm going to kill them and they are going to die because of me. So, if he realizes that the Atma is eternal, that there is an Atma in Dronacharya, there is an Atma in Bhishma, and I may kill the physical body, but I'm not killing the Atma. Then, if he develops that kind of a discrimination, he is going to be able to fight without any sorrow. Now, here there is an important, there's a warning, there is a caution that we have to take. We cannot use this kind of a logic or this tattva, we cannot use it to justify hurting other people because I want to have my way or because I want to cause sorrow to others. But in like, just because I want to do whatever I want to do and I'm not bothered about hurting other people, I will say, so what if I talk rudely? They should not feel bad, because I'm not saying for the Atma, I'm saying for their body. Can I say like that? No, I'm not supposed to use it in that way. But when somebody says something bad to me, or I feel hurt by what somebody has said, then I should think that, okay, this feeling, this experience is, it cannot touch my Atma. It is whatever they are saying is for the body. So I can use that as a mechanism to come out of feeling sorrow when something happens to make me feel sad. But I cannot use it as a tattva, as a principle, to inflict pain and hurt on other people. This is something we need to keep in mind, that we cannot use this saying that Viveka, and it is for Atma and for body or whatever, not a blanket argument for us to hurt another person. So, this is how we must make use of whatever here Krishna has told to Arjuna. So, now by telling this, Krishna is trying to, help Arjuna understand that don't feel that by fighting in the war, you are going to kill somebody. You are not the killer. Later, more shlokas will come where he will go into more detail about that. But for now, he's trying to tell Arjuna and get him to this state of mind where he's going to develop Viveka and be able to understand that whatever he does is not going to be the cause for the death of Bhishma or Arjuna. So, in that way, we need to understand and use the meaning of this shloka for us to develop what is called as discrimination, viveka. What is my body? What is the Atma? The body is different from the Atma. The body is destructible, it can be destroyed. The Atma is going to be ever living. So, if somebody very close to me dies, if I lose a loved one, how can I use this knowledge in that situation? I know that the Atma is always living. I know that whatever affection I had was for the body of that person. So I am going to feel bad, yes, because I also, this body of mine also is there. So it was attached to that body. But in reality, there is no attachment for the Atma. So that Atma had its own course of action to take, its own course of journey to go on. And this Atma within me also has its own journey to take. So when we try to use this principle, we will find that it is easier to not feel sorrow in our life when negative things happen to us. So we will talk more about this in the coming shlokas when Krishna explains more in detail. So with that, we have come to the conclusion of today's shloka that we were talking about. Now there were some questions which certain people in the satsang had asked. So I will just, since we have a few minutes left, I will just try to answer those questions. Many days back, Zarna ji had asked a question saying that uh, she's kind of realizing now when we talked about all those first chapter shlokas, she said that it makes me feel that dharma is not something that is rigid and it is changing based on the situation. Is that true? She had asked. So the answer to that is yes. It's not like saying dharma changes, but rather dharma is very context specific. And in our shastras, they explain about different types of dharma. Like, for example, there is something called as samanya dharma. So in samanya dharma, it is what is common for everybody at all points of time. Qualities like shama, forgiveness, satya, speaking the truth always, shaucha, purity and cleanliness, ahimsa, not being violent toward others, non-violence, dana, doing, giving to others, helping others, karuna. All these are examples of what come under samanya dharma. So everybody should follow this. Then there is something called as guna dharma. The guna dharma means the dharma which a person has to follow because of the particular gunas that he has or the particular role that he is playing. Now, like for example, we have already said in some previous satsang that suppose there is a doctor. Now, the doctor has to operate and perform a surgery to save the patient. Now, at that time, we said karuna is samanya dharma. Now, because karuna is samanya dharma, does it mean the doctor will say or ahimsa, not harming, not being violent? Now, does that mean the doctor should say, I will not perform the surgery because surgery is violence, right? At that time, because he is a Vaidya, because he is a doctor, what is his guna dharma? To save that person. And if that involves some amount of harm or hurt to the other person, he should be willing to do that. So, like that, now that dharma, that samanya dharma of karuna, changed its nature because there is a concept of guna dharma. I hope I'm not confusing you. I hope you are able to follow what I'm trying to say. So, similarly, there is something called as nimitta dharma. So, here, because of the particular conditions which exist, there will be certain changes in what has to be done at what time, in which way. Then there is something called apad dharma. When there is apad kala, when there is a calamity, right? At that time, the rules change, or what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. The Shastras themselves say that you can have modifications because there is a time of great calamity. So, like this, there will be different kinds of contexts, and in that context, we have to understand how this dharma concept behaves. So, in some situations, something which is dharma in one situation will be adharma in some other situation, or something which is adharma in one situation can become dharma in some other situation. Like, for example, and how we decide whether something is dharma or adharma based on what the Shastras say about it. So, for example, to give you an idea, now, generally speaking, killing somebody else, murdering someone, killing someone, is adharma. It is wrong. It is against the rules of dharma. But for somebody who is a soldier, who is fighting for his country, and he has to fight against the enemy country, and then he has to kill that enemy, at that time, it is not adharma, because he is kshatriya dharma, as a kshatriya, as a person who is fighting for the country. It is his dharma to protect his country. So that takes importance over the other samanya dharma of ahimsa, of not killing somebody. So what is adharma for a normal person like you and me? We cannot go around murdering somebody, killing somebody. That is adharma for us. But for the soldier, that act of killing is not adharma, because that is part of his dharma as a kshatriya. So like this, instead of saying that dharma keeps changing at all times, it is better to say that dharma is very context specific, and interpreting whether something is right or wrong in some situation depends on what is that situation and what the Shastras have told about that situation. So on that basis only we must interpret what is dharma and what is adharma. Now, somebody else had asked a question. Mona Lisa ji had asked a question saying that sometimes it is confusing that when we must act and when we must leave everything to God. Because some places in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is telling that you take action, you act. And at other times he says that you don't do anything, you have to just leave everything to me. So I think what she means is that the what is considered as the Charama Shloka of the Bhagavad Gita, that Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tva Sarva Papebhyo Mokshayishyami Ma Shucha. Forget all other dharmas and you just surrender to me. You leave everything to me and I will take care of you. I will give you moksha. That is where Krishna makes a statement saying that you need not do any dharma, but you just come and surrender to me. Now, at that, when we hear something like that, we feel that, okay, we must not do anything, we must leave everything to the Lord. But saying that we must not do anything is not actually correct. Rather, what Krishna is implying is that you have to keep doing karma. You have to act. Action has to be there, because I have this body and I am used to action right from the time I am born. I have to keep performing whatever actions I have been told or what is required for my stage of life. But what is the meaning of saying that give up all dharmas? It is to say, don't do any action thinking that by doing that you will get moksha. Thinking that by doing that you will be responsible for moksha. You will only get moksha when I give it. So the implication is we cannot stop doing any action. At all point of time, we have to act. We have to perform karma. But what should be our bhava? What should be our attitude? That whatever I am doing, is it just karma or is it karma yoga? Now, what is the difference between karma and karma yoga? Karma means it is just an action that is performed. But karma yoga, we know the word yoga. It comes from the word yuj. And yuj means union. So anything which is done to unite with the Lord, to go and become one with the Lord, or to attain the Lord, that is called as yoga. So when I just do some action, it is karma. But when I do some action which is going to get me closer to God, then that becomes karma yoga. And how do I do this? How do I make sure that my actions are helping me to get closer to God? By a simple logic. Anukulyasya sankalpah pratikulya varjanam. So what happens is I need to do all that is pleasing to the Lord. Whatever is going to give joy to the Lord, I have to do that. And pratikulyasya varjanam. Whatever is going to displease the Lord, I am not going to do that. When I keep this as my yardstick, when I keep this as my measuring standard, then it becomes very simple for us to know how to act. That we have to keep doing something or the other. We have to have action is definite. But how do I act? What should I do? If that is my confusion, then I need to understand that whatever in any given situation, if I behave in this particular way, is it going to give joy to the Lord? Then I'm going to do that. If I behave this particular way, is it going to displease the Lord? It is going to make him unhappy. It is something which is not told in the Shastras, or it is told not to do in the Shastras. Then I will not do that. That should be my way of deciding whether to do something, how to do it. That I have to perform action, definitely I have to. But when I'm performing that action, I should not do that action with the hope that I'm going to get something out of it. I should not do something with the some action with the idea that this is going to get me moksha, because ultimately moksha comes by the Lord giving it to me. So how do I make sure that he gives it to me? By doing whatever is pleasing to him. So if at all we have a doubt, should I do this? Should I not do this? Then if I'm not able to decide, I have to do something, right? I can't say I will not do anything. But before I do that action, let me just take a moment and pray to God and say, oh God, I'm confused now about whether I should do this, X or Y or Z. So you please guide me and help me to decide how I'm going to do this. So already one way of judging is, if it is going to please the Lord, do it. If it is going to be displeasing to the Lord, don't do it. So that is one way we can do. Now sometimes there may be a situation where there are two things and both will be pleasing to the Lord, but then you are not able to decide between them. Then you say, you talk to God, you pray to God and ask for help and guidance and say that you only guide me, that what I have to do, which is the best way. Oh God, you please guide me. And as we get more and more used to doing this, we will be able to understand. God will send us indications and we will be able to understand what it is exactly that he wants us to do. So I hope and pray that Krishna will bless us to be able to get to this state. It is difficult, no doubt, but if we keep doing bhakti and we keep praying to the Lord to help us go ahead, then we will definitely get there. So with that, we have come to the end of our time for the satsang. So let us offer Kritagnyata. Let us offer gratitude at the lotus feet of Sri Krishna and Guru for inspiring us to start and join this satsang. And let us pray for their blessings and grace to always be on us. Namaskar and thank you everybody. If you have any questions about what we talked about today, you can please message me on WhatsApp. There's another thing I wanted to just ask, that there was somebody who wants to attend the satsang live by joining in on this Zoom call, but she is not able to do so on Tuesdays. So she was requesting if it will be possible to change the date to Thursday. So I want to check with you whether you are okay with keeping it on Thursday. Please let me. I think some people may not expect, So please let me know whether Thursday is also okay for satsang, and the majority people will then decide. Thank you, everybody. Namaskar.
Ansuya ji, whatever you said, the last few things we couldn't make out. There was a lot of disturbance.